Khalistan Desert, 1863. The sun scorched the earth, and the winds carried nothing but dust and silence. Amid this endless sea of sand, standing atop a lonely dune, loomed a massive structure of black stone, Sayagar Haveli, or the Black Fortress. It cast a shadow so heavy that no bird landed on its roof, and no traveler dared approach it after dusk. Locals spoke of curses and disappearances, of servants swallowed by the walls, of cries in the night that faded before they reached the village. The people of Bahawalpur had learned to whisper the name of Nazar Bakhsh Qureshi, the enigmatic and feared landowner of Sayagar. He was once a loyal ally of the British Raj, rewarded with vast lands and titles. But whispers followed him, tales of cruelty, secrets buried under the floorboards, and of those who entered his haveli and never came out. One morning, a weathered cart creaked down the old trade road, its wheels cutting thin tracks into the burning sand. Driving it was Fakir Chand, an aging coachman with eyes sharper than any soldier's blade. Unbeknownst to most, Fakir Chand was a former intelligence scout for the British Army, now a covert agent gathering intel for the Indian resistance. He had been tracking patterns, disappearances, strange movements of goods, and sealed off routes that once led to bustling villages, now ghost towns. All signs pointed to one location, Sayagar Haveli. And so, under the guise of a harmless traveler in search of work, Fakir Chand arrived at the gates of the Black Fortress, unaware that what lay beyond the doors would challenge his understanding of evil and force him to confront a horror more ancient than colonialism itself. The massive iron gates of Sayagar Haveli creaked open with a groan that echoed across the sand like a dying animal. As Fakir Chand stepped through them, the air itself seemed to shift, cooler, denser, almost watchful. The Haveli was unlike anything he had ever seen. A strange blend of Rajput grandeur and foreign architecture, its walls were carved with serpents, moons, and half-finished faces that looked suspiciously familiar. A heavy silence blanketed the courtyard, broken only by the flutter of a torn prayer flag caught on a rusted spike. A man in a dark waistcoat approached him. Pale, lean, with a twisted smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You are expected," he said. Sahib Qureshi knew someone would come. Fakir's heart skipped. He knew. How? ***. Inside, Nazar Bakhsh Qureshi sat like a statue carved from old bone. Draped in fine silk, a bejeweled cane resting by his side, he looked more corpse than man. His eyes, though, were alive, calculating, cold. "I see you've come from the east," he said, voice thin but firm. "They say men from Bengal walk with secrets in their pockets." Fakir bowed his head, carefully playing the part. "I'm but a poor coachman, Sahib, looking for work, maybe shelter." Qureshi nodded slowly. "Shelter is cheap here. Loyalty is not." That night, as the sun dipped behind the dunes, Fakir heard a strange sound. Whispering. Not from people. From walls. Murmurs crawling up the stone. Words without form. He followed the sound through the maze-like corridors and stopped beneath a narrow window. There, silhouetted by moonlight, stood a young woman, maybe 17 or 18, staring at him through the bars. Her face was half hidden, her eyes hollow. "You shouldn't stay here," she whispered. "Who are you?" Fakir asked. "I'm
Shamim," she said.
"I was born in this house, but I don't belong to it." "Then why haven't you left?" She didn't answer, just looked away and vanished into the darkness. ##### The Secret Ledger. The next day, Fakir offered to help in the storerooms beneath the Haveli, a cavernous area lined with ancient crates and sealed chests. While pretending to clean, he discovered something behind a broken wall, an old ledger hidden inside a metal box. Dusty, but untouched by termites. He flipped it open, all crossed out in red ink. Each entry followed by a single word in faded Urdu. Delivered. Delivered where? To whom? He heard a noise behind him and quickly closed the book. "Busy, are we?" said a voice. Rashid Qureshi, Nazar's eldest son, stood in the doorway. His face was friendly, but his eyes gleamed with suspicion. You'll find no treasure down here, Rashid said. Only old debts. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the locked door. That night, Shamim returned. She spoke hurriedly, fear tightening every word. They're watching you. If they suspect anything, they'll make you disappear like the others. What others? Fakir demanded. She hesitated, then pointed toward the eastern wing. There's a room. Always locked. No servant is allowed near it. I once peeked through the keyhole. Her voice cracked. I saw bones. Before Fakir could ask more, a bell rang through the Haveli, sharp and shrill. Go, she whispered. Don't draw attention. As he turned, she said one last thing. They call it the feeding room. Asterisk. The following morning, the desert sun did little to warm the chill that had settled in Fakir Chan's chest. The memory of Shamim's whispered warning echoed in his ears. The feeding room, what could that mean? He had seen brutality before, colonial prisons, rebel camps, corrupt landlords. But something about Sayagar Haveli felt older, darker. This wasn't about money or power. This was something else. Something hungrier. During breakfast in the marble courtyard, Rashid Qureshi smiled politely across the table. Nazar Bakhsh sat in silence, picking at his food with silver utensils, while Rashid filled the air with meaningless chatter, poetry, horse breeding, foreign cigars. Then, out of nowhere, he said, You know, Fakir Bhai, we've had many helpers here. Most of them disappear. Not because they die, but because they leave. Why would they leave such a beautiful Haveli? Fakir asked, keeping his voice steady. Rashid leaned forward. Because sometimes beauty hides hunger, and not everyone is willing to feed it. Fakir didn't respond, but his hand tightened slightly around the cup. A test. This was a test. They suspected him. That evening, Fakir scoured the servant quarters for any way to reach the forbidden eastern wing. Most corridors were watched or sealed, but an old man, nearly blind, mentioned something strange. There used to be a door behind the stables, he murmured, but it was sealed after the twins went missing. Twins? Fakir didn't press. He waited until midnight, then quietly slipped through the old path behind the crumbling stables. Dust choked the air. The walls narrowed. At the end of a twisting hallway, he found it. A heavy wooden door, wrapped in iron. No lock, just a latch. His fingers hesitated, then pushed. It didn't budge. Suddenly, footsteps. Fakir hid in a niche as Adnan Qureshi, the youngest son, and perhaps the cruelest, approached the door. He pulled a small brass key from around his neck and unlocked it. The door opened with a hiss. Fakir caught only a brief glimpse inside before Adnan disappeared into the dark. Shelves stacked with jars, bones suspended from the ceiling, cages. And the smell. A wave of rot, and something worse. Something living. Minutes later, Adnan emerged, locking the door again. He walked away, humming to himself, a child's lullaby. Fakir's stomach churned. The next day, Fakir confronted Shamim. I need to know what's in that room. She paled. You'll lose your mind if you go in. Try me. Shamim trembled. Then, finally, she spoke. My grandfather built this Haveli over an ancient shrine. Something woke up when the foundation was laid. It whispered to my ancestors. Promised them wealth, protection, but in return, it demanded blood. Not from animals. From people. Fakir's breath caught. They built the feeding room for it. Every month someone is taken. And the house, it stays alive. Alive. She nodded. This Haveli breathes, Fakir. Haven't you felt it? He had. The temperature shifts. The walls that seem to shift at night. The whispers. Later, Fakir opened the hidden ledger again. He noticed something new, a second column of names, written in older ink. At the top, seedlings. Underneath were symbols, dates, birthmarks. Each entry had one note. Accepted. Fakir realized with horror, these weren't just victims. These were chosen ones. Perhaps even bred. A line of offerings. And one of the newest names written? Shamim Banu Qureshi. The wind howled like a warning across the dunes of Sayagar, but inside the Haveli, it was deathly still. At the stroke of midnight, Fakir Chand and Shamim crept through the abandoned kitchen corridor, their feet silent on cold stone. Fakir carried a rope, a lantern, and the stolen ledger tucked inside his shawl. Shamim clutched a rusted key she'd secretly taken from Adnan's chamber, the one that opened the feeding room. They returned to the hollow tile. With shaking hands, Fakir lifted it. Beneath, the blood tunnel yawned like the open mouth of a beast. No turning back now. The smell hit them first, damp rot, stale air, and something sickeningly sweet. The tunnel was narrow and carved into rock, slick with moss and dried blood. Fakir held the lantern forward as they crawled downward. The air grew heavier, thicker. The walls pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Then they saw it, markings on the stone, ancient symbols painted in crimson. Shamim traced one with her fingers. "This is the sign of Sinaira," she whispered. "The goddess of sacrifice. The one they feed." Fakir shivered. Why build a house over her shrine? Shamim looked at him. Because she blesses those who obey, and curses those who don't. At the end of the tunnel, they reached a domed chamber, vast and circular, lit by strange glowing stones embedded in the ceiling. The floor was covered in salt and blood, and in the center lay a stone idol. The figure had no face, just jagged teeth, hundreds of them, spiraling outward like a black flower. Shamim dropped to her knees. "She's real," she breathed. "All the stories, they're not just myth." Fakir stepped closer. Something inside the idol moved. A heartbeat. Not his. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and the walls began to whisper. Not words this time, but names. His name. Her name. Shamim. Fakir. Asterisk asterisk. Fakir stumbled backward and touched the idol by accident. In an instant, his mind was elsewhere. He saw flashes of the past, generations of the Qureshi family performing rituals, fathers offering daughters, mothers holding babies as the walls absorbed their screams. He saw Rashid, his hands soaked in blood, dragging bodies into the chamber. He saw Shamim, her face younger, crying, locked in a cage. Then the final vision, Nazar Bakhsh Qureshi praying before the idol, whispering, "Take my sons, take my blood. Just let me live forever." The idol answered in a voice made of ash. "Agreed." Fakir woke up gasping. Shamim was shaking him. "You touched it, didn't you?" He nodded slowly. "I saw everything. We have to leave. Now." But as they turned, a grinding noise echoed from the far wall. A hidden door began to open. Not by their hands, by someone else's. Steps. Coming from the other side. Shamim grabbed Fakir's wrist. "Run!" They fled back through the tunnel as something huge and wet moved behind them, dragging itself forward, whispering their names in a voice like stone cracking. They burst into the kitchen just before dawn, breathless and filthy. But the Haveli was no longer quiet. Nazar Bakhsh Qureshi, Rashid, Adnan, and a dozen armed guards stood in the courtyard, waiting. Nazar stepped forward, holding the open ledger. "You went too deep," he said softly. "You are supposed to be the next offering, Fakir." Shamim screamed, but Fakir held her back. His mind raced. He had only one chance. "You still need blood, don't you?" he said aloud. "You still need someone for the feeding." Rashid sneered. "And that someone is you." Fakir smiled. "No. That someone is you." The courtyard of Sayagar Haveli pulsed with tension. The sun had barely risen, casting long, skeletal shadows across the cracked marble. Fakir Chand stood tall, covered in dirt and dried blood, facing down Nazar Bakhsh Qureshi, Rashid, Adnan, and the guards. Behind him, Shamim trembled. Not from fear, but from knowing the truth. No one leaves the Haveli unless Sinaira allows it. Fakir took a step forward. "You've run out of time," he said, eyes locked on Nazar. "You think your goddess listens only to you? I touched her. I saw her. And she saw me." Nazar's face twitched. "You're bluffing." Fakir smiled coldly. Then test me. Fakir pulled the blood-stained ledger from his coat and flung it at Nazar's feet. Pages fluttered open, names, dates, markings, secrets. In this book are the sins of your entire bloodline, he said. From the first child sacrificed to the last servant vanished. If I die today, this book doesn't. It goes to the press, to the police, to the people. Adnan stepped forward, gun in hand, but Nazar raised his hand. Let him speak. Fakir turned to the guards. How many of you know what you're guarding? How many of your brothers, your sisters, have disappeared in this Haveli? Ask yourselves. When is it your turn? The guards hesitated. Rashid snarled. He's poisoning them with lies. Fakir's voice grew colder. Then let's see what the goddess says. That night, when the others had retreated, Fakir returned to the chamber beneath the Haveli alone. The idol of Zanaira pulsed with faint light. I know you're listening, he said aloud, stepping into the salt circle. You want blood. You want obedience. I'll give it to you, but not mine. The walls trembled. The whisper returned. What do you offer? Fakir swallowed hard. I offer the house. The family that built this shrine. The bloodline that tried to cage you. The air thickened. And what do you want in return? Fakir stepped forward. Let me take Shamim and leave this place. End the Qureshi curse. With me, not her. A long silence. Then, done. Hashtag Judgment Day. The next morning, screams rang through Sayagar. The guards awoke to find the Qureshi men missing. Doors slammed on their own. The walls bled. The idol in the chamber cracked and breathed. In the great hall, Fakir stood at the center, arms outstretched. Rashid was the first to fall, pulled into the floor by unseen hands. Adnan vanished into a mirror. Nazar Bakhsh tried to run, but the doors of the feeding room opened, not by human hands, and dragged him inside. And Fakir watched it all. Hashtag escape. Hours later, as the sun rose over Sayagar, the main gate creaked open for the first time in 50 years. Fakir and Shamim walked out together, leaving behind a silent, breathless Haveli. The birds did not sing. The wind refused to enter the grounds. Behind them, the great black doors of Sayagar closed and locked themselves. Forever. Months later, in a dusty town miles from the desert, a new ledger began. This one written by Fakir Chand, using an old quill and the blood of history. He wrote, They say the goddess is gone, but gods like her don't die. They wait. One day, someone will find the idol again. Someone will listen to the whispers. And the Black Fortress will breathe once more.